there was a big, huge brand in the 90s. And so they had a big following, the retailers, the distributors that loved the brand. So it was easy to get back into the points of distribution pretty quickly, which I learned that's not the case always, when you have beverage brands. But with the original New York Seltzer, it was a little different. So we was 0 to 50,000 stores in 12 months probably, which is crazy and unheard of. Um, but I got my feet wet with beverage and more consumer goods and fast moving consumer goods, and I stayed on the board for up until we sold it, and I actually orchestrated that acquisition. But that's when I went from original New York Seltzer back to Kentucky to start my own brand, which was Unified Water, and that's when it really got hard.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast, filled with marketing and leadership tips on launching and growing your business with your host, Deanne Mora.
My guest today is a man who's made a career out of turning big challenges into even bigger opportunities. Josh Sizemore is the CEO of Feast Fast, a keto snack brand rigorously tested for health claims and designed to be safe for diabetics. But that's just the latest chapter in a remarkable 25-year entrepreneurial journey that's taken him from small town beginnings to building and exiting brands across retail, CPG, and wellness. He's revived a bankrupt seltzer brand into a $400 million success story, launched Unify Water to deliver over 100 million gallons to communities in need, helmed leadership roles at La Costa, Shinola, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK for variety, and built everything from CBD marketplaces to powdered kombucha brands. Josh's career has been guided by three constants: health, wellness, and impact. And he's not afraid to share the lessons learned from his big wins as well as his hardest pivots. So today we're diving into what it really takes to build brands that matter, keep teams aligned under pressure, and navigate the evolving worlds of retail, e-commerce, and AI-powered startups. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, you told me that you grew up in a small town of just 900 people. So how did that shape your drive and your appetite for risk?
It's a good question. I think I've always been a observer and not really a talker. If I say something, it's usually because I'm very passionate about it. I understand it and I mean it when I speak. And I think my learning was like that. Like I saw what I didn't want. And that was like through my career early on, and my retail days the same. So growing up in like poor situations and just seeing not poverty, but like just people, poor people, and like knowing what was out there and knowing that things could be like way better for if you just go out and get it. I think I understood that at an early age, and I saw my friends or people in my community just living just to live or whatever and not doing much. And I knew I didn't want to do that. So I'm sure that had something to do with it.
I'm always impressed by people who come from a situation where they didn't maybe have the role models and the mentors, and they still managed to find a way to make it to the other side and to be successful. So definitely kudos to you for doing that. Do you feel like there was an early moment where you just thought to yourself, I'm not going to work in business, I'm going to build businesses?
Yeah, I think I always had the itch, and I think it's just every other entrepreneur. That's just when do you take the leap, right? Like when do you do it? And luckily, one of my good friends, Ryan Marsh, who owns one of the largest vending companies in the world, maybe the largest, and he bought Original New York Seltzer. And about that time, I was getting like very burnt out of retail, and the corporate world was a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of politics. Even though I had a really big position, it was a lot. And so about that time, he called me. He's like, "Hey, just bought this brand from bankruptcy. Do you want to come out and run it for me?" And I was like, "I'll try." And so I moved from Detroit to LA and just jumped in head first. And that was probably 60% entrepreneurial, just because 40% of it was they were a big, huge brand in the 90s. And so they had a big following, the retailers, the distributors that loved the brand. So it was easy to get back into the points of distribution pretty quickly, which I learned that's not the case always when you have beverage brands. But with the original New York Seltzer, it was a little different. So we was 0 to 50,000 stores in 12 months probably, which is crazy and unheard of. But I got my feet wet with beverage and more consumer goods and fast moving consumer goods. And I stayed on the board for up until we sold it. And I actually orchestrated that acquisition. But that's when I went from original New York Seltzer back to Kentucky to start my own brand, which was Unified Water. And that's when it really got hard.
It gets real because then you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
But back to original New York Seltzer for a minute. So I'm curious. So you're asked to go into this position. So that sounds like this is something that's relatively new for you. And like, how did you approach the first 90 days or so when it came to rebuilding the brand?
Yeah, the first thing I did was I started reaching out to people that was beverage veterans, and I got a couple huge beverage guys on the team, and just so I could learn from them, they could help me navigate what was right, what was wrong, decisions, and so that helped me a lot. And not a lot of people are able to do that, but Ryan was like, yeah, whatever you need to do, just do it. And so we did, and that helped a ton. And aside from the beverage specific stuff, business is business, right? It's relationships, it's navigating margin, it's figuring out how to generate revenue. It's all the same stuff and just a different vertical and different industry that you're used to. But it's a hard good. I was used to hard goods, so it's not that far away, but it was new. But the first thing I did was hire some really key guys to help me navigate.
And that's something that you hear from a lot of leaders, that, the key to success is surround yourself by, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Surround yourself with people who are like really good, been there, done that, whatever you want to accomplish, whether it's you bring people in externally or you hire them internally, but make sure that you have that. So it sounds like you did that.
Yeah. Same with, I wish I knew that though, when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I wish I had that same thought process, because you could go out and seek people that were doing great stuff and at least ask them to be a mentor, at least ask them to be in a circle. That's the thing. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to ask. That's what I learned with Unify. Like, my ego was out the door. It was to ask everybody for anything. But for entrepreneurs that were just young kids, that would be the biggest life lesson. Put yourself in a position to be around people that have done things great.
Yeah.
And you'll be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel being an entrepreneur is tough because when you work for corporate, you're in a big company, there's always someone right there in the company you can reach out to answer the most questions that you would come up with. It's not necessarily going to be exhaustive depending on the level that you're at. When you start your own thing, you look left, you look right, and it's you. Who are you going to bring in? Who's going to be those mentors, those guides who can help you from making every single mistake that everyone else has made?
Yeah, 100%.
And you've built both CPG brands and now a SaaS product. So like, how do you approach the go-to-market strategy differently for each, or do you?
So it's always evolving, but it comes from the same place. Do you have an MVP, right? Do you have a model? Do you have a product that people want? Is it needed in the market? Is it solving a problem? All the traditional things. And then how are you making money with it? Is it easy, accessible in regards to a physical product? Is it online? Can you get it easy? Is it at your doorstep? Is it on Amazon? Like, how are you getting that product to the consumer? How are you getting the message to the consumer? With the SaaS projects, it's a little different because you just have to be available. You don't have to send them anything, right? So it's a much more, you can be more impactful with your money and your margin, honestly. And so you can do more with it. I think in regards to the totality of messaging scale, where with a physical product, you got so much margin and you're going to spend 25 cents per unit on your marketing budget, and you got 25 cents worth of a message. Well, with a SaaS project, there's no physical product. So that 25 cents maybe becomes $2.50 or $3. And that $3 message is 10 times greater than the 25-cent message. So if you think about it like that, I think that's the only difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm assuming potentially in both spaces, but definitely in CPG, you've probably worked with influencers and gotten into that space. So what do you feel is working now in the influencer marketing space for mission-driven brands?
I think it's just quick. It's the marketing companies that are quick to react and quick to move with you. Like I've worked with many, and recently I worked with a new marketing firm in regards to influencers and TikTok shop and things. And I think the biggest kind of setback was they just weren't as quick as we needed them to be to move on things. If they were quicker, I'm sure we could have got 10, 20 times more influencers and content, etc. But we didn't. And we're ultimately we're paying for that influencer. And aside from influencers, you have, the affiliates. So now you have affiliates where you don't have to pay for them. You just have to send them products, and they're getting you the same result basically as these influencers and micro influencers are, and they're faster, they're more nimble, it's an interesting space. I would prefer the influencer space just because I think you can get more bang for your buck ultimately. But if you're not going to have a marketing team that's managing those influencers that's quick to your needs and quick to react, then you're just wasting your money.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And when you're thinking influencers, or just for our listeners, is it necessarily you have to go to the Kardashians, or are you looking at micro influencers? Like for a CPG brand, where do you think the right balance lies?
It's just a matter of your budget and who can fall within that budget, and the more authentic of an influencer, meaning they actually love your product, they want to post, they want to do this, and that's the best kind. No matter if it's micro or macro, it's gonna hit. You just got to give it time and got to be consistent. But if you're just paying people to post your product and they don't give a shit, like it's usually not going to matter unless it is unless it is the Kardashian. Yeah.
In which case, even if they sniff at it, it's probably worth the money.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking earlier about sort of some of the challenges of when you're an entrepreneur, that that there's just a lot of speed bumps that you hit. And I know one that you mentioned to me when we were preparing for this was that you told me that your Meta account got hacked. So, like, how did you rebuild from that without losing momentum?
Man, so that's just been a pain in my ass for the last 2.5 months. So we came out of the gate strong for the first couple of weeks, our ad team, and then we got hacked, and then that just kind of that spiraled everything out of control. From the hack, we had to deal with Meta trying to get our money back, and we couldn't do anything with that account until Meta responded. They have still not responded, so you have to almost create a mimic account within the same atmosphere. You didn't have to do this. We could have done what we did ultimately. But the first thing we did was try to just duplicate the account within the same atmosphere. But what happened was, since our account was compromised the first time, now our card was being questioned, like our billing payment. For 3 cents, 10 cents, we couldn't even get it through. So every transaction was being stopped, and would have to get on the phone and all this stuff. And we did that for a weeks, and we finally about probably 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago, we finally just shut all that down and created a whole new Meta account, a whole new everything, and just basically started from scratch. And it's been slow, been a lot slower than I've been used to, a lot slower than these guys have been. Because I worked with the same people I worked with in the past, and they crushed it, but it's just not happening as fast as it did. So we're thinking we're going to move on to maybe a new marketing firm, because these guys may not understand what we're trying to do, but that's just the name of the game. And sometimes it don't work out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure for any of the marketers listening, they're probably rolling their eyes, because we've all had crazy encounters with Meta and Google that do things that don't make sense and are slow as molasses to try to get them to react. It can be a piece crusher. So that's a rough one.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, going back to before you started launching your own thing, one of the things that you mentioned was that sort of burnout in retail shaped the way that you lead. So you're building teams now as well. So what do you do to protect your teams from the same fate that a lot of times happens in corporate America?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I'm the type of person that wants to see everybody do good and succeed. And also, as a leader, you have to be stern and hard and no nonsense and to the point. So it's a fine line of how to do that. But if you don't have people on your team, and this is when I was at Lacoste or Shinola, and we had teams of, Lacoste had a team of thousands, and Shinola, we built a team of 350 in 2.5 years. And there's layers and layers that start happening. And if you don't have leaders within those layers that think like you, that are portraying the message and the culture, and if something's off by 1 inch, by the time it gets 10 layers deep, then it's going to be off by 3 feet. So it's just, I think I learned, and I just got to the point where I'm like, no matter how bad I want the culture to be one way, it's never going to be perfect, and it's never going to be that way. And especially if you have 3 or 4 other leaders that just think different than you, like, you're never going to be on the same page. And which I know that was so interesting because we had 2 CEOs at any given time. So they both had different opinions on how things should be. So that just...
Wait a second, how does that work? How do you have 2 CEOs?
I don't know. Ask Tom, the founder of
Interesting.
the founder of Fossil, Tom Carsotis. He's the one that founded Shinola, and he's an interesting cat, man.
All right.
But yeah, to your point, like, culture is a huge, important thing when you build businesses. And if you don't have people that's on your team, that's backing you up, and that's on their team backing them up with the same type of mindset and culture and alignment, it's never going to work. And to the initial point question of, or comment of how it structured me to lead. Yeah, when I was at Abercrombie & Fitch, I was like, I think I was store manager at the time, and it was early on. I was probably 6-7 months into my retail career, and we had a big visit from the director of stores and VPs and all this stuff, and literally, like, the vice president of stores came in, and we had been working like insane, like 16, 17 hours, just folding, making sure that everything is perfect. They come in, first table, I'll never forget it. And literally, they looked at it and they threw everything off of it. And I was like, all right, I'll never be like that. I'll never do that, be that type of person. And so that was one of the first instances I can remember, like, where I thought, this is insane. And if at that time, if I would have had another job opportunity, I would have just walked out probably. Oh, I don't hear you. You're on mute.
And that it's amazing how, when you're young, how incidents like that can influence your perspective. And that was obviously, you're still talking about it today. So that was obviously a very powerful statement of what not to do as a leader that clearly came to shape you.
For sure.
And I know that you've mentioned about the importance of creating culture clarity. So how do you do that so that leaders are on the same page in a fast growing company? So maybe you don't get somebody who's going to be a jerk to the front line while leaders are thinking that the culture should be built in a certain way. How do you get that alignment?
Yeah, I think it's from the top down. So it's me ensuring that whoever is being brought on to the company has specific skill sets and mindsets with regards to the business, with culture, with how they lead. And because you can't teach attitude, right? You can't teach somebody to smile all the time, but you can teach somebody to build a spreadsheet. I'm not worried about that. You can't teach common sense, right? There's certain things that you can't teach, and those people need to have those things. And if they have those intangibles, then, and they're also aligned with, okay, this is what we're doing, this is our plan for the next 3 or 4 years, and they're on board with that, then you got somebody great. And if you're in those next few meetings that that they're hiring for, or your other people are hiring for, and you inspect what you expect with those people, then you should be okay. Like, there could be fall offs, but when you're growing so fast, it's hard to get in those meetings, and you're just taking somebody for their word on, this person's amazing, and we're gonna hire them, and they're aligned. And I'm like, all right, great, you're aligned with me, so it must be true. But there could be a miss, and second, third, fourth opinion is always good. And if they didn't get that, then somebody might have got missed, and that person that came on board, now they're doing good work, but they're philosophy is off. They're ultimately they're not, they're an asshole, but they do good work. So that asshole now is leaking out to other people that they're bringing on board. It's just, especially when you grow so fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you believe in hiring, having certain company values, and that becomes part of the interview process and the review process, and just really try to institutionalize that within a company?
Yeah. And I think having too many core values is crazy in my opinion. Like I've been with brands, like we got 12 values. I'm like, why don't you just have 3 good ones? Everybody can get around 3. Everybody's not going to have 12. Not going to have the same 12. So let's be serious and have some common sense about it. So yeah, there's a few for sure that I think as a leader that and a company that's growing as an entrepreneur, you have the values because you've been in the grind and you've went through the trenches and you've went through the ups and downs. So you understand what the values mean to the company. So that's where the values should come in. And not just made up out of thin air, like most companies do.
Absolutely. When you think back on, we all make mistakes as founders and entrepreneurs, are there any particular mistakes that you repeated more than once, and what finally taught you to avoid it?
Not repeated, no. I know that's the one thing I can say. And I've never made the same mistake twice.
And is that something that you impress upon your team as well, that it's okay to make a mistake, just don't make it again?
Yeah, you have to live and learn. But if you make it again, then you didn't really learn anything. And then you didn't have the self-awareness to understand that you. So there's many things, in my opinion, that you could definitely make the same mistake twice in 2 different like circumstances, not realizing it's the same mistake. I can understand that scenario. But ultimately, that's just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But I made a million mistakes, but luckily none of them
A
twice.
different million.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's probably unfortunately that, yeah.
That's fair. There's always new ones. Back to surround yourself by really smart people who maybe have made those other mistakes elsewhere, so you don't have to make them again in your own company.
Yeah.
So moving to Unify Water. So that was a mission-driven brand, and you gave away over 100 million gallons to communities. Like you mentioned to me, it was kind of like the Tom's model in a sense.
Yeah.
How do you balance profitability and impact when you're building a brand like that?
Yeah. So I think it's probably a little different with Unify because we had a source that was producing 10.4 million gallons of water a day, and we can never use that much, no matter how much we sold in a lifetime. So it was easy to create a structure that allowed us to be a give back brand to give this water away because it's basically free. We just had to partner with NGOs and folks to come pick it up, and we did. And so it was part of our business model. It may cost us 5 cents or something every time they picked up 6,600 gallons, which was nothing. And we use it to our advantage. It's a great marketing opportunity for us. It was a great way to help people give back, give water. You would be surprised of the numerous cities in the U.S. that has horrible water, and people don't really even know about. It's interesting, but we did a good job with it.
Well, that's great. And so now you're, among other things, I think you mentioned that you and your wife are building a SaaS app, a surrogacy app that from a deeply personal experience. Tell me a little bit more about that, and how is AI shaping that platform?
Yeah, it's called Surrogate. So it's spelled SURROGET. Always is a little play on words, but it's we're building an app and platform. It's up now. We have a few users so far, which I'm super excited about. But basically, it's meant to connect intended parents with the best possible surrogates on the planet. And so the supply and demand of this thing is pretty lopsided. The demand is insane. So the supply is like short with the surrogates, right? So that's the first hurdle. The second one is ensuring that the surrogate meets your criteria. And our criteria is kind of insane, honestly. Our onboarding process, when you go through 2 video calls, and then we have you go to a psychologist for an evaluation. And then if the psychologist gives you the green light, then we have another call, and then we take you through the onboarding process. So it could take a couple weeks to actually get you onboarded as a surrogate. But when you're in the atmosphere on our platform, we We take care of you if you match with someone. And so how our process works, and this is AI is involved with this, it matches the surrogate and the intended family, and they can pick and choose. And let's say you have an initial conversation, it went great. Then you have a bigger video call, it went great. You decide to continue the journey off our platform, and you have 5 days to figure out if you want to solidify that or not. And if 5 business days goes by and you solidify, great. But if in that 5 days you decide something happens, the intended parents don't want it to continue, or the surrogate has questions, then the surrogate comes back on. We pay them a small fee for their time dealing with the intended parents, and so they'll stay on our platform. So it's an interesting process, but it's one that's there's nothing like it right now, and so we feel strongly about it. I don't know if you know what Web Summit is, but it's the largest tech conference in the world, and the one in Lisbon is actually the largest. And they just invited us to attend in November, so we're excited about that.
Congratulations! And it sounds like it's a great platform to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And the biggest thing is like not having, because we went through some issues with surrogates and stuff. And it comes from a need. It comes from a place of wanting to help people not go through like the things that, personally that we went through. We're going to do everything we can to make it the most safest and optimal and ultimately quickest platform for you available.
It sounds like a wonderful gift to families. And on top of that, you're building Feast Fast. So tell me a little bit more about what was the impetus for that brand?
Yeah, so Feast Fast is interesting because it connects with what I've always done, which is health and wellness. It's a keto brand born from a doctor and a scientist who knew each other from college. They were overweight. They decided to go on a weight loss journey together, and they started going through this weight loss journey and utilizing keto and fasting as their main mechanisms for weight loss. And they started wanting to eat these keto-friendly snacks that's in the market, but being doctors, they would blood test themselves every time they would eat these snacks, and their blood sugar would spike every time. So they're like, we can't do, these are not keto because they spike blood sugar, and we can't stay in a fasted state because, again, the only way you can stay in a fasted state is if your blood sugar stays even all the time. So they're like, let's just make our own snacks. And they knew a buddy, and he was a food guy, and he started making these snacks, and they found some snacks that worked, and they eventually lost over 100 pounds each. And they actually created this program called Foy Fasting, which they started pulling in their additional clients to go through weight loss programs and utilizing the snacks that they made. And so about 10 months ago, a recruiter found me and told me about the brand and said they wanted to get this in the market as quick as possible. Being health and wellness and keto, and that's all great. And then it's a huge market. But the one thing that I thought about that could be even better, and this is what we're going to put our stamp on and put our flag in the ground on, is it's going to be the safest snack for diabetics. So there's 150 million pre and diabetics just in the US. And so we feel like if we can create the most delicious, but also the safest snack for them to eat on a daily basis without having to check insulin every time, then we got something huge. And our product, we have a patent pending on our product. I've never seen a patent on a food product before, but our delivery mechanism, and it just allows, the way we do it, our ingredients form together and is delivered in a sense that it doesn't spike your blood sugar whatsoever, versus all these other keto friendly snacks that we've tried all of them. They all spike your glucose. So we're excited about that aspect of it. And again, it's being able to help so many people just not worry about having to check insulin every time you eat a cookie.
That sounds like if it tastes good and it doesn't spike your sugar, maybe we should all be eating it. So.
I agree.
But yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'll have to check it out. So obviously you've had the opportunity to build a number of businesses in different spaces. If you were going back and designing, I'll call it a real world MBA for entrepreneurs, what classes would be mandatory?
Man, that's a good question. Assuming I have the resources that I need, I think the first class would be just observation of a successful entrepreneur, probably for weeks and weeks, just to see what they do, how they act, hopefully what they've learned. What else would be in that? I think probably an assignment would be go find two people, that you can attach yourself with, look up to, be your role models.
Mentor.
Yeah,
It's sounding like a lot of what we've been talking about as being an entrepreneur is, rather than having to make all the mistakes yourself, is learn from other people's mistakes, surround yourself with smart people, and use that to accelerate the growth of your business.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge one. Obviously, probably figuring out like margins and revenue and like direct, like go to market strategy, like what's better, like for what product. All those things would be hughtly advantageous to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go to a couple of rapid fire questions, what do you, in your mind, what's the best purchase under $100 for productivity?
A whiteboard.
A live board?
No, a whiteboard.
A whiteboard. Okay.
Yeah.
With a marker. Big little scribbler.
With a marker, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my number one.
Okay. And what about one book that every founder should read?
The War of Art.
Interesting.
Yeah, it touches on what we've been talking about, just overcoming obstacles and getting out of your own way, and it's really good. Very interesting. I haven't read that one. And then what's your personal definition of success today, and how has it changed over time? Yeah, I don't know. Do you feel that you're successful? No. Really? No. No. Yeah, I don't know. Success. Is that an entrepreneurial thing? Do you feel like never being satisfied with what you have and always pushing for the next thing? Probably, yeah. I'm sure. I think it's got to do with like how you was raised, how you brought up. Like I was always like let down as a kid. And so I just pushed myself like, okay, I got this. That's not enough. So do something else. Push yourself more. Go get more. Do more. It's always like that, no matter what. And I realize when I say it out loud, it's crazy, but that's just how I'm built. But that's drive too, I think, with a lot of entrepreneurs, that if you reach the point where you feel complacent and I've made it, like even entrepreneurs who build like yourself, you built like massive brands, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you didn't retire. You didn't say, okay, I'm done. You're like, what's the next thing? And I think that's always any of the entrepreneurs that I speak with, that seems to be a consistent thread. It's what's the next thing? I know there's more. I need to make more impact and continue that drive. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad disease. It makes the world go around. So we're in a whole bunch of entrepreneurs with that drive, then we'd have a lot less businesses, a lot less jobs. So it's sure. At the end, it's a good thing. It's about being So Josh, listen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. If people want to reach out, how can they find you? LinkedIn, just Joshua Sizemore. Social media, same thing. My name. If you guys want to check out Feast Fast, feastfast.co, and then I don't know if you can drop a code for 25% off, and we'll do that. That's all right, wonderful. Cool. Thank you, Josh. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and looking forward to continuing our conversation offline in the future. Sounds good. Thank you.